It's wunderbar. We are living in America. America. It's one. Okay, cool. Hey, guys. What's going on? Bet you're wondering why I was speaking a little bit of Deutsch. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But first, I'm going to tell you guys, you've been pronouncing it wrong this entire time. We are going to be talking about the Bilstein shocks for the X3 and what they've got coming up next. But in order to do that, we got to go over to Justin Smith.
I had no idea that you spoke German there, Steve. Does anybody even know that? Did you know you spoke German? What else you got?
I'm a man of many talents, Justin.
What else you got? I think you had some other words that you have nailed.
Yeah, do you know how to say bra in German?
No, I don't. How do you say that?
Stop 'em from flopping.
They definitely teach that one in school for sure.
Yes.
Actually, thank you very much, Steve, for the introduction. And we're going to talk about Bilstein shocks, specifically for UTVs, just like we have talked about every other shock known to man and made in the past. We've had a couple of people chime in on this possible feed that we were throwing out there about our involvement with Fox and how that could cloud our judgment on one of these, and that we're just going to say that they're horrible, right? Absolutely not, you guys. Look, we've shown you the inside of walkers. We've shown you the inside of, I don't think we've done an Elka yet. We probably should. But inside of Fox RC2, Fox bypasses. So here's the inside of a brand new Blackhawk from Bilstein. And I got that right. I'm probably going to screw it up a couple times today, though.
Yes, you will.
Because I just learned the proper way of pronunciation today. But these shocks from Bilstein are going on specifically an X3. Currently, they've got this shock package, which is a Blackhawk, available for the X3 and coming out for Pro R, Turbo S, and XP1000 soon, just staging it along over the next couple of months. Some of the cool things on the inside of this shock that get us excited as shock tuners are the ability to individualize or kind of dial in the area that you're tuning inside this thing, where a lot of shocks, like say for instance in a walker, you really only get one compression zone. You're going to stiffen it up. It stiffens up the compression throughout the whole cycle of that shock, with the exception of possibly a needle zone or the bump stage with a needle. So maybe two zones, but the bump stage is not tunable. Well, on other shocks, you've got high and low speed compression, and you've got rebound, so three zones. In a bypass, you've got tons of zones as you start going through some of the side stacks and bypass port designs and locations and things like that. Well, these shocks have a lot of tunability in them as well. We'll get into that. This is kind of a list of some of the things that are cool about this shock. Not necessarily in order or anything, but with this new shock, you have 3 compression zones, which 1 and 2 are going to be the high and low speed compression knob adjuster, which is very easy to move. And these are also individually adjusted. So if you adjust the low speed, it's not going to affect the high speed, and if you adjust the high speed, it's not going to affect the low speed. They do adjust different directions and flow rates. So a lot of people ask us that when we're talking about other shocks too that might have a screwdriver adjustment for the low speed or high speed. It does not affect the two together. Also, this shock has a 2-stage JCO. What's JCO stand for? That is joust cutoff. Jounce cutoff is basically the fancy way, engineering term for your bump stage. So that last bit of travel inside the shock and that last bit of suspension travel as you land it, you really want that to ramp up at the end and give you a decent bump stage, keeps you from bottoming out in the big hits. Also having a bump stage separate from the mid-stroke of that shock adjustment means you can set everything on the soft side, plush side when you're going through your normal rocks, chop, and chatter, but then the last little bit slows you down. That is your bump stage, which is the JCO. I'll show you in this cutaway how that works. So with this shock completely cut apart, you can see the piston cycling through. Well, as you hit a bump, this thing's going to go all the way up to the top, and up in this area is your bump stage control. This is a tube within a tube. As this top piston on top of the shaft of the shock enters this first cup, that is your first stage of your bottom out bump zone. As it continues farther up, you'll see you get into a second stage. Now it moves the larger cup all the way up. That is your 2-stage bump stage. You can actually tune that. You can tune that internally, and you can tune it externally. This shock has a bump stage adjustment, or JCO. This means that you can go out, run your car, maybe it's on the soft side, but you really want it to be plush in the mid-stroke where you're driving it normally, but it just bottoms out on some of the bigger washouts or G-outs that you have on the trail. You can come over here and adjust that bump stage a little stiffer and just have the stiffness you need in the last little bit. That's kind of cool. As a tuner, we're always trying to throw a ton more bump stage into a package, into a UTV shock package, without sacrificing the plush ride. Well, this allows you, as the owner of the car, to be able to adjust that. Normally, you got to come to us and have us do it internally. This one's done externally. Steve, looks like you had something you wanted to add to that. Maybe more, I don't know. Did you have something else in German, maybe?
No, I could, but I did have someone on here. I don't know if it's K.P. Robinson, but he said, what places do you recommend to get an alignment done? I would say an alignment shop. That would be where I would get that done at. But no, seriously, I don't know your location, but most alignment shops, regular car shops, 4-wheel parts, stuff like that, they'll be able to do it for you.
Cool. Mitch, you got anything? All right, back to this. So we got adjustable bump stage, JCO. We've got 3 compression zones. We've got dual speed adjuster, and the dual speed adjuster, you've got the JCO adjustment. In the rebound side of things, you've got 2 adjustments. One, actually I'll go into the RCO, rebound cutoff. Basically, this is also an engineering term, fancy engineering term for the top-out control. Well, that is controlling that rebound as the shock extends all the way. Maybe you jumped it, and that suspension's coming out. You've got a rebound speed in the mid, and then at the very end, you've got a slowdown period that slows that rebound down so it doesn't clunk and get that extension clunk that we all know, especially when you throw a heavy wheel and tire on there. Well, that's a second stage within the shock. So, back to cutaway. On the piston, we've got rebound valving just like anybody else's design. You can tune that by taking the shims and changing them, or you can tune that right here on the end of the shock with a rebound adjuster, like most, where you can add or slow it down or speed up the rebound section externally. And then you've got that second stage or top out area where the main piston has a little small one below it. This little rebound piston actually technically doesn't become a piston until it arrives inside this one. But let's look this way. Watch as this extends, then that piston on the shaft is going to join this floater. And what happens when those two come together is that rebound valving immediately is slowing the system down by shutting off some free bleed ports that are naturally in the system. So when these two make contact, now this slows down at the very end, stops it from clunking without having to use an extension spring or anything else in the system. But what's really nice about this is valvable and tunable. So if you run a 35-inch wheel and tire and the standard setup is a little bit too fast on the extension and it clunks, well, we can get in there and change the valve stack, which is actually right in this gap right there. We can change the valve stack that controls this extension speed, slow it down for the extra weight, or go the other way. Maybe you got stock wheel and tire, we can speed it up. That might actually help in certain situations. You never know. What you got there, Dom?
Dalton Hill is asking.
Dalton Hill?
Dalton Hill.
Okay.
Is asking, for the rears, are they reservoirs, piggyback, or are they remote?
So these are remote, and they do have a custom clamp that comes with the system for the large reservoir for you to clamp it to an X3. But that's going to change on different vehicles. So you get to Pro R, then that's probably going to be or Turbo S, it'll be a piggyback, so it'll change on models. But it'll match kind of what came on the UTV factory, basically. So 2-stage rebound. If you're driving along and normal movement in the system, you can adjust that with the external adjuster. And then on full top-out extension, that speed at which this slows down at the last little bit is tunable inside the shock too. That's really cool. I mean, again, us as tuners, we really want to control all the little zones and areas within the shock function, and these designs allow us to do that. So, rebound zones, vehicles with these are available. Right now, they're available for the Can-Am X3 and the 72-inch wide. Here in the next month or so, we've got it Pro Rs, and then shortly after that, a month or two later, Turbo S, a month or two later after that, XP1000. So they're coming out soon. Materials, construction of this. This is a complete aluminum constructed shock. So aluminum bodies, aluminum reservoir, everything that is here is Type 3 hard anodized. And Steve loves some hard anodizing for sure. But if you guys don't know much about anodizing, there's lots of ways you can do it. And most of them are not a hard surface. Most of them, it's mostly a color and an anti-corrosion plating. But in Type 3 hard anode, that's what you would do for the inside of hydraulic cylinders so that they don't wear out. You would do that on the inside of brake calipers on where the piston rides inside the caliper so they don't wear out. A high use, high stress area, that Type 3 is the way to go. Everything on this is Type 3. Even the external of this, external plating on this resi is, and the cool thing about that is that it tends not to fade when it's sitting in the sun a long time. And you guys have probably seen anodized parts that have been outside for a couple of years. They get real dull and light colored. That wouldn't happen with this. Fin construction or reservoir construction is finned for a little better cooling. Mostly, I think that gives a really cool, snazzy look, which Steve is extremely excited about. He likes snazzy. Also, these shocks for an X3 are actually a 2.65 diameter front, a little bigger than a 2.5, and a 3.0 rear. Since they are not an internal bypass shock, the piston is a little larger, which means that the front piston and rear piston is typically bigger than most shocks that are on an X3. And that goes same for like a Walker, because those are 2.5 front and rear, right? Correct. On that one. But we've had a chance to take these apart, put them back together a little bit. We're excited to do some more testing. I've actually ridden in an X3 with these on them at King of the Hammers. It was pretty impressive. We're looking forward to getting more time on these and have some tunes for you guys. And we do have these in stock. Currently, we've got 4 sets. They've got a production line ramping up soon, so we'll have a lot more soon. The retail on these is $6,500 and a little bit of change. Call it $65,000. And that's right in the ballpark with everything else aftermarket that's available you could buy. Mitch, what do you got?
Matthew said, you said these have 3 compression zones. Do the Foxes come with 3 bypass ports on the Can-Am RRs?
Good question. That's actually a question for Mitch because some of the models do change, right, Mitch?
Yeah, 2 to 3 ports, but I mean, you're still only 1 compression zone with being bypass tubes. Your porting is changing, but your
it is a zone. So
it is a zone.
When the piston is below those ports, that's technically a zone, and you block off the first port, then it's another zone. You block off the second port, it's another zone.
Yeah, I guess if it depends on if we're talking about just bump stage zone, if you will. Like that is a 2-stage, right?
Bump stage.
Yeah.
So let's clarify that. So
If
total compression zones, we have 3 in this package. You've got the mid-stroke, and then you get into a 2-stage compression. Like on a bypass, you would have the number of ports would be your zone. So if it's a 3-port bypass, that's 3 zones there. Below the ports, it doesn't count because that's 3 ports, right? Goes from 3 to 1. There's three zones, and then you have bump. Yeah. So there's actually, you could have 4 compression zones in a bypass system. But we don't have the time in these yet to kind of give you an idea one way or the other. But I mean, the short ride that I took was pretty impressive, and we're looking forward to playing with them. And it's just more options out there for everyone to choose, and we're happy everybody else is jumping into it. The market is getting bigger, and that's great for us, right? Tom.
Ty Spencer is asking, do they have a high speed and low speed?
Yes. When we started talking about these, that's these 2 knobs right here. You got high and low speed adjustment, external adjustment, and it's really easy to do. And you have a bump stage adjustment. So hopefully that answers your question. Steve. Yeah, you're making up something. I can see in your face.
Yes, Ankle Sock Steve said some German on here. I'll read it off real quick. Remember, it's not me. How do you say sexual intercourse in German?
Oh, we're definitely getting a phone call now.
Anyways,
I think wasn't that Wiener Schleider?
Wiener Schleider.
Okay, there you go.
How often should your shocks be reconditioned or valved?
You know what we should do is have a reconditioning department. That sounds so much better
That'd
than
be cool.
rebuilds.
Then rebuild. It does. Recondition.
I do really like that. But it depends on how hard you drive your UTV. We suggest between 2,500 and 3,500 miles for the average guy that's a play car and might play pretty hard. If it's a race car, then we're looking at every race or every 1,000 miles is what we like to see. And when it comes to valving, I would valve them instantly to get them to your liking and have the UTV perform the way you want it to perform. And you don't have to change that unless your style of driving changes. We find this a lot, actually. It's a good subject we could cover one time, right, Mitch? Where people get their UTV, they're fresh with it, they drive slower, they're more cautious. We tune and valve for that, make it super plush. They get more comfortable in it. With a couple thousand miles and a bunch of trips with their friends, they start driving harder. All of a sudden, they can bottom the car out where they didn't before. We get it back, and we valve for that, step it up for them. So I think how often should you valve? Kind of up to you and your driving style, really. But normally, you're not going to see valving wear out in a UTV anytime soon. If you do the work with us or have us do the work on your shocks, then anytime you send your shocks in after the first valving has been done, for a rebuild or a reconditioning?
Yeah.
Reconditioning on
Update.
your shock? Then you get updates on the valving from us for free. So if we've come up with something a little better or you want to change it a little bit, that's free if you're getting the rebuild done with us. What other questions have you got, Steve? I figured there'd be a bunch on this stuff because these do a good job in a different way than almost any other shock out there. So
T-Av said a great upgrade for a Walker Evans car.
Yep.
Or like another option is what he said.
Yeah, more options, more better. I mean, we don't want just one thing on anything we do. I mean, if I just had to eat, Cool Ranch Doritos all the time, I'd get pretty sick of Cool Ranch Doritos.
True.
Sometimes you got to throw some Lay's in there. Ruffles.
I know we talked about
Fritos.
it, but there's another question about how much these shocks are.
Yeah, so the retail on these shocks is about $6,500 a set, and we'll update you if that ever changes.
John Crowley wants to know, any electronic options coming?
That's a really good question, and one thing I forgot to do was to thank the guys from Bilstein coming out, giving us a cutaway shock just to show you. Bilstein, I apologize. I am learning myself. But I want to thank the guys from Bilstein for coming out and giving us the cool visual aids for you guys and a whole lot of information on that. There was no discussion on electronic options, though, John. We didn't talk about it. Not that there isn't any coming, but we'll have to ask. We'll find out. Yes, Steve.
San Felipe 250?
The answer is yes. We will be racing San Felipe. We're actually prepping vehicles now in the background outside. We've probably got 6 or 7 UTVs that we're taking down there for the pre-run. And yes, we'll be racing it. We will be racing it in our Pro R, and it is a stock Pro R. It has the safety stuff thrown at it that SCORE requires with door bars and bumpers and fire extinguishers, but it's a stock cage. It is pretty much everything else on its stock except for our parts. So we'll see how that does. I think the stock one's going to do really well. Also, we're bringing the new Segway with us to Mexico. It'll be the first time one of those has gone there and gotten flogged like we normally will in a pre-run, and we'll give you a heads up on how that performs. Also, we have a set of these Bilsteins on one of our pre-runners so that we can get more time in it and learn some stuff and maybe have some tunes for these and be able to be a good source for you guys with personal experience as to how this stuff works. And we want to be that way with every shock manufacturer, no matter who it is, the Walkers and Kings and everybody's stuff. Okay, we sell them all, we service them all. We just want to have time in all of them to be able to answer your questions accurately. Mitch.
Rich Fortin wants to know, are they going to be available for the Pro XP?
I don't know that they are. The Pro XP is not on the list that I've seen right away. I'm sure that it will be, though, especially if they're doing a Turbo S. Knowing the Turbo S platform is canceled, I'm sure they're going to go right to that right away. Dom.
What are your thoughts on the finned Resi?
So I think that it is really cool visually, but testing has shown that finned reservoirs are minimal when it comes to cooling advantages. You really need to have super thin fins like a radiator fin to do a good job there. But there's no doubt that it does a better job with just total surface area being 2 to 3 times more surface area than a smooth one. They're going to do something, but I think that the biggest advantage is visual, personally. They're probably a lot stronger, too. I mean, imagine having, ribbed for Steve's pleasure is definitely stronger than a smooth tube.
Oof. But ribbed. Anyways, Tapatilla Carilla wants to know, Pro XP Dynamic sway bar upgrades. Would you even recommend it?
Which one?
His name was, it's Tapatio Carilla.
Which car, Steve?
Pro XP Dynamic sway bar upgrades. Would you even recommend it?
No, we didn't think that thing needed a whole lot more sway bar in it to work really well. But the adjustability would be nice. So we do kind of have a couple ideas in that area where we can get a sway bar to be adjustable for you, but it's not the first one I would suggest where you have to have it. Like an XP 1000, you got to have more sway bar on that one no matter what. And a few others too, like the front of a X3 Max, it definitely needs a front bar. It helps the thing turn a lot better, but not so much in that model. What do you got, Mitch? Or Steve, whispering in the background. Shh.
John Crowley.
Oh, again.
How do the Bilstein, sorry, should I do it too? How do the Bilstein Blackhawks compare to the Fox RC2?
That's a good question. Thanks, John, for poking it. I appreciate that. But number one, we don't have very much time on this shock. As a matter of fact, I got about 20 minutes driving a car with one, so I don't think we're qualified to answer that question for you. But from a physical standpoint and taking both of them apart, then an RC2 is a badass shock. It has multiple zones as well. It has full adjustability as well. But I feel like looking at this, we've got some adjustability in the rebound extension. We've got 2-stage bump stage adjustability in this. So there's a couple spots where this is more tunable than an RC2. But RC2s are also $4,800 a set. So I think that there's an option for everybody, depending on what you're going to do with the car. And as I said, we don't have a lot of time in this. We just wanted to show you how they work and how the design came about and how that can help you eventually. So, Steven Stein?
Agreed. I just think it's cool that there's another shock manufacturer out there that's making stuff for cars that gives you just more options.
Yeah. I mean, it's like having 20 tires to choose from. You get
It's
whatever
like
you want.
having every flavored Dorito, right?
Exactly like that.
I mean, you said it best.
All right, if you guys don't have any more questions, then we can wrap this up, right? Dom, you're good. Mitch is good. All right, everybody's good. That means I'm signing out. Thanks a lot for taking a look at this new stuff from Bilstein. Blackhawks. I'm getting it to where it's normal now instead of saying it the other way around. And your German translations are helping me out. I really appreciate that.
I got you, Justin.
So we'll give you some more information after we have more time in these, and we'll give you a ton of information after we go and win the San Felipe 250. We are out. Steve, take it away.
Guys, if you'd like to buy anything from us, just visit our website, www.shocktherapyusa.com, or if you have any questions, just give us a call, 623-217-4955.